Welcome to the Loud Whisper Reignite Your Voice
Welcome to the Loud
podcast.
Whisper
This is your
Reignite
healing
Your Voice
space,
podcast.
and I am your host, Isabel Drawn. Thank you so
This
much
is your
for
healing
joining us
space,
today.
providing
As always,
you with
could be
hope
listening to
and
any other podcast.
inspiration
We
as
appreciate
you
that
become
you're
more
here with
connected
us.
to
Make
yourself.
sure you subscribe and also share
Your
with your
safe
friends.
vessel,
Remember, this is a healing space. It's a space where we
helping
have
you move
honest,
to a
real
higher
conversation.
consciousness,
And the
to
reason why I do
reignite your
that is
voice
because I
and
believe
discover
we all
who
need permission
you are
to start
destined to be.
healing. We need permission to start evolving.
I am Isabel
So
Drawn,
my
your
guest,
host. I am
come on
also
here
an
and we
author,
have heart-to-heart
entrepreneur,
real
and a life
conversations so
transformation
you
and spiritual
see
coach.
yourself
Most
in either
importantly, I am a
both them,
perpetual
and
student
hopefully
of
it will
life,
give you
just like you.
something,
So let's
right,
explore
to look
together.
forward to, or give you something
Claim
so you could
what
start
is
on your
already
own
inside
healing
you.
journey, whatever that looks like for you. Thank you so much for being here. Again, my guest today, I'm excited. His name is Neil. Look, he just told me, I'm an honest person. He literally just told me his last name, but because I had to say what I said, it went out the door. Neil, could you just say it again?
Yes, Neil Tricarico.
There we go. There you go. Neil Tricarico is our guest today. I'm excited. And guys, let me tell you something. This is our third time. Third time is a charm. I had to reschedule twice, but I believe what is supposed to be done is going to be done no matter what. And I think it was supposed to be done today. For whatever reasons, maybe our hearts are in the right place today and we're here together. I'll tell you a little bit about him. He is a speaker, storyteller, and a guide for post-traumatic growth who helps adults move beyond survival into courage, meaning, connection, and a way forward after life changes everything. His work is rooted in the loss of his only son, Anthony, and the long, honest journey of rebuilding that followed. For more than 20 years, Neil worked alongside visionary leaders, including Tony Robbins, Steve Lisaski, and David G., helping people create transformation in their lives. What is so interesting, I always told myself I'll be the female Tony Robbins. So here we go. Those years ultimately prepared him for a loss he could never have anticipated. Today, through his speaking, life experiences, and the endurant way, Neil challenges what he calls the closure lie, the belief that pain must be solved, understood, or closed before we're allowed to fully live again. He now guides others in learning how to carry what happened in meaning and purpose without allowing it to steal their future. Neil, welcome to Loud Whisper Reignite Your Voice podcast. I am honored to have you here and to create space for this conversation.
It's an honor to be here, Isabel. And, I know we've had to reschedule a few times. You've gone through some significant weather challenges. And I, too, agree. Timing is everything. Everything happens when it's supposed to. And in the introduction, you shared something that really struck me when you were speaking to the audience about the hope and wish that they might find some connection in either my story or yours. And that touches me deeply, because that's why I do it. If one person can feel less alone, less terminally unique, and that there's a possibility for them too, then this time is well spent. So thank you for setting the table in that way.
You're very welcome indeed. You're very welcome. And so I'm going to jump right in.
Please.
Neil, how do we rebuild a meaningful life after something happens that we cannot change, fix, or receive closure from?
So this is my personal experience. This is my lived experience. The pebble drop, if you will, for the possibility to rebuild a life of meaning, purpose. And, if you've had significant loss like I have, the life you knew, planned for, hoped for, dreamed of, even expected, when it gets blown to bits, the natural tendency, understandably, is to go into some suffering. And, suffering has value, but ultimately the possibility for creating a new destiny, because there's no going back, but the possibility to emerge for a new destiny starts with your heart remaining open So if your heart's been blown to bits or broken into untold number of pieces, as you start to pick up those pieces and try and figure out how to put them together, my experience is, and very early on, it was Tony Robbins who shared this with me, and then moments later in a different way, but Tony shared with my wife and me. He said, I know this is really, really hard, and it may seem hard to do, but if you open your heart and you open your eyes, the possibility exists to make new friends, join new cohorts, find new mentors, people who will literally show up on the journey to shed light and guide the way. And it's so Tony of him, and obviously from working with him for a couple decades, in many ways I've been training for this without knowing it, but it's really true. And then I'd say within an hour, my wife and I stepped outside and we bumped into someone we knew, and she said to us, she said, "Hey, I hope this is okay to share with you. I don't know if what your faith is or if you believe, but I know you have tremendous loss, but the only thing I could share with you is if you open your heart and you open your eyes, angels on earth will start to appear around you." And so that's the hard part and the
I
easy
felt
part,
that.
because when our hearts are broken, we want to close off and
Yeah.
we just want to hide. And I'm speaking for myself, and there's a lot of shame. But when your heart is open, there's nothing to do, because literally the people will come from wherever they are to
Mhm.
shed light, to provide perspective, to create the possibility that this experience may in fact be a calling to something greater, but you're not going to experience that if you're closed off, head down, eyes closed.
I love that. And it's so I love what you said, right? Opening your heart. It is so hard for people to do that,
Hmm.
because we've been trained to close our hearts. You talked about
Hmm.
how when your heart is broken or shattered, you live in shame. I can
Hmm.
relate to that so much. For many years, my heart was closed because of the shame. But once I opened my heart, it felt like, how they say light comes through the cracks. So when I
Hmm.
was broken and I allowed my heart to open is when light started coming through. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, Neil, before we talk about the work you do, take us back to who you were before losing Anthony. Who
Hmm.
was Neil then? And how did this loss change your understanding of self, your life, and everything you thought you knew about transformation?
Mm. Gosh, okay, great question. So I'll start with, who was I before, and then
Yes.
everything I knew or thought about transformation.
Yeah.
Powerful,
Yeah.
powerful question. So I mean, who I was before, I mean, first and foremost, and still am, husband and father. Those are my most important roles in my life, and
Mm. Mm.
roles that I enjoyed before, and maybe to a certain extent unknowingly took for granted. My career, interestingly enough, was in sales and leadership, and I was a reluctant salesperson. I thought I wanted to be an attorney. I went to law school, made an important decision that it wasn't for me, didn't know what I wanted to do, and reached out to close friends and families. This is the late 90s, early 2000s. And to a person, they said, you'd be really good at sales. And I was reluctant to get into sales, used car salesman, late 90s, early
Yeah.
2000s was like Glengarry, Glen Ross, coffees for closers, but
Hmm.
I excelled at it. In my career, I was in software and technology sales, and I wanted to get out of it because I was so reluctant. But then I found a woman by the name of Joanne Martin Braun, who helps people find their purpose in their careers. And super long story short, that's
Hmm.
when I found the likes of Deepak Chopra, Tony Robbins, Steve Lashansky, had an opportunity to work for these individuals, many of whom are aware of Tony Robbins. So I was a sales leader. I led sales teams. We brought people to powerful and transformational events.
Hmm.
And so for me, it was meaningful because I got to live in my superpowers of influence and sales and leadership, but put them to good use.
Mm.
Um, Now, all that said, the second part of your question is really fascinating about like, what did transformation, how did that look for you before all this? Well,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, so I started with Deepak Chopra, and that's where I learned meditation. That's where I learned spirituality. I learned about quantum physics and the idea of, or the possibility that we're not humans having a human experience, we're souls having a human experience, and that we are in fact connected through our souls to a greater place, if you will. And that I understood that, and I was hopeful about that, but I didn't really think too much about it because I wasn't faced with any adversity or significant loss. But I was hopeful that when the end came, it was really just an experience and a returning home, and that there was more to it. So that seemed interesting. And then my work with Tony Robbins, powerful, bringing people, who are coming to transformational events who will be struggling with loss, challenge, what have you, many of them for decades, but certainly for years and months, watching them transform, feeling grateful and honored to be a part of their transformation. But what I came to realize through my own loss, that 20 years of experience, while preparing me for what yet I didn't know I was being prepared for, was very in my head. I understood it. It made sense, but it was only from this significant loss that got put to the test, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. That makes total sense. And what parts of your former identity could not come with you into the life you were asked to rebuild after your loss?
Well, man, that is a good question too. Well, I mean, the question like limited to identity, I feel like a lot has come, but here's how I'd like to answer that question.
Yeah, sure. Feel free. Whatever comes to your heart.
Yeah, I think people will often tell my wife and me that we're survivors. We lost our son to mental health and suicide. He was diagnosed high functioning autism, and we didn't know this. We've only come to learn about it after.
Today's for you, Anthony. We're thinking about you.
Yeah. So kids between the ages of 12 to 18 with the high functioning autism diagnosis are nearly 30% more likely to die by suicide. And this was not something my wife and I knew. And now we've dedicated our lives to and launched a nonprofit to close this gap. But all that to say, to come back to answer your question, what parts of my identity, people will refer to my wife and me often as survivors of suicide. And I appreciate where they're coming from and understand the love and care behind their words. But my experience is that I didn't survive suicide. I died that day as well. Everything that I knew, understood, hoped for, cared for, ended on that day. So it's not that I've somehow survived this thing. My life as I knew it ended. And now I'm in this life reborn, not in a Christian kind of way, but just reborn, but into the same life that continues on faster than it ever did before and looks the same, but feels massively different. So what I carried with me in my identity, I think what I'm really grateful for is my heart, my big heart, even though it's purple and bruised now instead of red. And my zest for life, one of my best friends described me as someone who pulls every ounce of love, joy, connection out of experiences. And I'm really grateful that's stayed with me. So I guess what I would say is, I think that the idea of surviving suicide is a myth in many ways, because we die with our loved ones and have to learn to rebuild in a life that looks the same but feels entirely different. Yeah. And then what I'm grateful that's stayed with me is my big heart and my zest for love and connection and joy.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to add on to that zest for life, that energy honestly, when we first met, you were on fire. And I see why your friends say that. I see why they say that's an identity that came out of you. Just your whole demeanor, your energy, and just excited that we're going to have a conversation. So I can totally understand where your friends are coming from. And it's contagious, you know.
Mm.
I pray you continue to open your heart and continue to have that within you. Because as much as it's healing you, I guarantee you it's healing a lot of people who are around you.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
'cause
received that,
feel
Isabel.
it.
That means a lot. I felt the reason you sensed all that excitement and everything when we first met was I just knew this room and this opportunity could impact lives, save lives potentially, and I was energized
Yeah.
by the opportunity to come have this conversation with you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your heart. Now, you describe something. I was reading your work and you described something called the closure lie. The belief
Mm.
that pain must be solved, understood, or closed before we can truly live again. Why can our pursuit of closure sometimes it keeps us trapped in the very pain we're trying to escape? And you did talk about that here a little bit, but I would love for you to define what you mean by the closure lie.
Yes, sure. And it, that there is some similarities to this myth of survivorship. But yeah, so
Survivorship,
the
suicide
the
survivorship.
closure lie is a powerful phenomenon. I think over decades and generations, especially here in our country, the idea of loss and grief and healing seems to be something with a start and a finish. We have loss, we mourn, we grieve. Um, we're supposed to do some work so that we can sort of recover, okay, and close on that experience. And with no disrespect to the powerful and meaningful work of Kubler-Ross and the 5 steps and such, the challenge is those 5 steps exist, but they never, in my experience thus far, and many that I've interviewed who have been recovering for far longer than me, is they're always there. So what happens if we're supposed to have some process that we can put a nice bow on and now we've healed, then if you don't have that experience, then it amplifies your grief and your loss, because you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm doing the steps, I'm doing the things. Why don't I feel better? Why don't I feel like I did before? And so it stacks and compounds. So now you've got this, inexplicable, heartbreaking loss, and then you've got this feeling of, well, I'm not achieving this thing they're telling me about isn't happening. And more so than that being a lie, and the impact and pressure it puts on someone going through the process, hoping, striving for closure, that is very challenging. But equally, if not more importantly, it robs them from the possibility of growth. I know it sounds trite, but I've come to understand this in a big way. Everybody has loss. Everybody has something. We can't see what people are going through, but all of us at some point or another are going to have significant loss and impact on our lives and also our own lives. None of us get out of this alive. So if we're going to have that, why is it something we're supposed to move past and close? And I'm just going to kind of riff a little bit more here. The opportunity that's available to us is immense growth and connection. So what do I mean? I shared earlier that I'm someone who, loves life, got a zest for connection and joy. And so my threshold, or my pole here for joy, love, connection was here. Now, admittedly, for 49 and a half years, I didn't have much adversity. So my baseline for pain or suffering was maybe here. My parents separated in college or high school for a couple of years. I lost my best friend to cancer. Those were hard things. I had some challenges. Anthony's diagnosis was a biggie. But the sum total of all my adversity, it doesn't equal the loss of him. So now I'm here. Boom. Traumatic loss, right? And so what happens is, to many people, is if they're here, Now the loss moves them here. So now they've got unimaginable depths of pain, suffering, take your breath away. But now their threshold for joy is here. And it's like in the pain zone, in the suffering zone. But if you can open your heart, if you can open your eyes, instead of moving the whole continuum here, you can, or what happened for me is the continuum is this wide. So what do I mean? Yes, unimaginable pain, loss, take your breath away, but also now equal and magical opportunities of even deeper joy, love, connection, appreciation, intimacy, mind-blowing stuff. So as mind-blowing and as take your breath away as this is, so is this. And that's this idea of post-traumatic growth.
Okay.
Post-traumatic growth says when our purpose becomes greater than our pain, we will take action towards a purposeful life. And post-traumatic growth is the antithesis of post-traumatic stress disorder, which says if that continuum moves here, so we're only in the range of suffering to pain, over time, that's going to become a disorder. But if we keep this and just appreciate the gift of this broad spectrum, this deep connection with our emotions and lived experience, it opens up the possibility for even greater depth, emotion, and love. And that's this concept of both and. It's a concept actually that I learned from Deepak Chopra. I know he's not a popular name right now, but it's the duality. I choose to take what helped me. I didn't know about any of that other stuff. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you.
But
that's what I tell people. Do you.
The duality of emotion says both can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
I can carry extraordinary levels of pain, but also have deep levels of connection.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, that's a long answer. But so the closure is a myth. Take that and set it down. Be free of it and start to play with this possibility that I could feel pain and joy. And it's a practice. And when you learn to carry both, it opens up the possibility for extraordinary levels of emotion and connection.
Extremely powerful. It was not too long. Exactly what we need to hear. Exactly what we need to hear. You know, I love that you talk about the closure lie, because here's the thing. We live in a society where check the box, move on.
Mm-hmm.
Move on, you know? Mm-hmm. And I can't even imagine, you know, you just sitting here and having this conversation with me. I put my heart out to you, and I'm so grateful because I can't even fathom what you have experienced. But the thought and the idea that society is telling people to move on, telling people you have to have closure to what?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Closure.
Yeah.
You can't lose a child and expect people expect you to have, closure to what?
Yeah.
That's a pain that I feel nobody can even describe. So how do you get closure to it? And I love when you talked about the duality. Both can experience. The world is a duality. There's light and dark. It doesn't matter where you go, what we do. That's just the duality. There's light and there's dark. But I wish people, anybody who's listening, grab that closure lie and run with it. The reason why I love it so much, you know, Neil, I love this so much. It gives people the permission to heal, to be, and then to also understand there is no end to this. Learn how to live with it to the best of your ability. And don't you ever, ever let anybody tell you there's a date to your grief. There's an end date to your grief, or there's an end date to your suffering. We all have a different journey. We move in different paces. And I tell my clients all the time, and I tell people that I talk to, this is your journey. It is your path. You have to walk it your way. You know, so this is extremely powerful. Thank you so much. The closure lie. Now, many people become incredibly skilled, right, at functioning while they're suffering. I was one of them. I was one of them. And my suffering, of course, is not coming from a loss of a child, but my own suffering, my own traumatic experiences, what I've been through in life. So they work take care of the families, lead others, and appear strong. I was one of them. Had the strong women, Black women strong, mask on. Strong women cape. I had to strip that off because it was killing me inside. There you go. But internally, they're barely surviving. How can someone, Neil, recognize the difference between genuinely healing and simply becoming better at performing and saying, I'm okay? A lot of us are good at saying that. I work with women. That's our favorite thing. I'm okay. Oh, I'm fine. How are you doing? I'm fine. I'm okay. We have mastered that performance so well, and yet internally we're suffering. And I'm not just saying this because I read it somewhere. I've lived it. I've done it. I was that girl who was suffering internally, had the strong Black woman mask. When I walk out the door, you'll be like, man, she has it together, right? But I spent many a nights gazing in the ceiling, just heartbroken, asking God, there has to be more to life than this. But when I walked out that door, I had that performance on 10. So how?
I'm so glad you asked how, because sometimes I feel like, especially with my background, with Tony and Deepak and some others, I just have this voice in my head if I'm sitting in the audience, like, oh, that's easy for you. You had all this training.
Yes.
And so I'm so glad that you asked the how. And I'm going to answer it in 3 parts, a couple of which you brought up in response to my other question. One is just remembering that the duality, right? Again, you shared, like, duality exists in all of our life. We're alive now, we're going to die. The sun is up, later it's going to be down. There's dark, there's light. So why wouldn't that exist in this space too? So it starts with grace first and foremost, to acknowledge that in your heart exists light and dark, pain and joy. You just want to not stay in suffering too long, even though there's some value there. So just starting with the simple stuff, that life is juicy and rich because of the duality of emotions, and giving yourself grace to experience pain when you feel it, to sit in it. If you need to cancel a meeting, if you need to take time off, if you need to not get out of bed, doing that for yourself. Then that gets to the next thing you brought up, this idea of strength.
Yeah.
So strength says we're going to muscle through. I'm strong because this happened to me, and look at me achieve, strive, be a good father, be a good husband, appear like nothing's changed. And strong is good for your muscles and your physical body. It is not good for grief. What I would suggest in place of strength is courage. Strength is willing or pushing through it. Courage says, I don't want to do this. This is really hard, but I'm going to show up for it anyways. It's not going to power through it. I'm just going to show up with it. So courage is far more valuable and meaningful in the how. And then the third part that I would share, so you got black and white, dark and light, duality of emotions. You got valuing courage over strength. And then the last thing is, like, where does love fit into this, right? So if we've had trauma, if we've had loss, if we're in grief, and it doesn't just have to be the loss of a loved one, but if we're experiencing grief, you hear this all the time. Grief is just love that has no place to go. And I agree in part. I agree half of that is true. Grief is love. But the part that it has no place to go, I would also argue, is also a myth. Yes, maybe you lost your job and you loved it, so you can't do it anymore. Maybe you lost your partner and you love them, so you can't be with them anymore. Maybe you lost a child, so physically you can't place that love. But why are we trying to close off that capacity? Grief is love that needs to find new places to go. That's how we honor the loss, but also that's the capacity we have. So then you asked me, or I think you said something like, well, what is that? What would that look like? Well, how will we know? Well, we'll feel a feeling very similar to that feeling of connection we felt with that person. So for me, losing Anthony, the capacity of love that I have for him is extraordinary. There's
it's overwhelming. There's so much. So the idea that I'm going to try and stuff that down, not experience it, is just crazy. And with all that love, there's so many places to place it. So I feel the love and connection with you. So how do you know it's working? Because you feel that same love and connection. Yeah, I wish I would trade it all in a heartbeat. Let's be very clear. As awake as I am and how much I've grown, I would trade it all in a heartbeat to have one more shot to be with Anthony. But that's not possible. But every time I experience placing that love somewhere and connecting with another human, it's magical. And I also feel connected with him. And I tell you, it's not as hard as it sounds. Just share something courageously with someone else that's eating you up inside or you feel shame around. Someone you trust, a safe place. You'll feel that magic. You'll feel that safety. And you'll start to groove these experiences like, well, why am I worried about this love with no place to go? Like, I want the love. And it just means I had it all for one person. Now I got to place it in dozens of places all day. But when you do, the feeling is really extraordinary. So that's how I would answer the how.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Woo. Thank you. Thank you. So, your work, Neil, your work, it speaks about post-traumatic growth and the possibility of pain becoming purpose. You've touched on a little bit as we've been talking about this. How do we talk about growth after trauma without romanticizing the trauma or suggesting that something devastating has to happen in order for us to become who we are?
So that second part is so hard too, because
we got let it go.
Hard,
let it go.
Yeah.
We're gonna breathe. Let's breathe through that one. Let that one go. Second part.
Because it comes back. The second part comes back to what I was sharing before. I had all this experience, but I hadn't yet put it to the test.
Yeah.
And
but what I do want to ask you, though, since you've talked about, honestly, you've talked a lot about this question, and the second part does do that. I'll let you finish, but after that, I do want to jump into your enduring framework.
I will. And I could, so I do want to touch on the part about post-traumatic growth or expand upon it more. I had the opportunity to interview Dr. Richard Tedeschi. He and his partner pioneered the concept of post-traumatic growth nearly 30 years ago. And this was to support our veterans, who were dying by suicide, who were coming home and being faced with post-traumatic stress disorder. And so he was helping them find purpose. And so I don't think you need an event as catastrophic as I've experienced, because that, for me, that was just a forced awakening. But it's finding purpose. It's finding something greater, a calling to something greater. And, again, I put my head in the mind of the listener, and they're like, oh, well, your call to something with greater was pretty obvious. And in many ways it was, because for almost 10 years since my son's diagnosis, all the support, all the services we had, all the things they had us anticipate, they never once talked about mental health or suicide. So weeks after Anthony's passing, when this staff became aware to me and all the great work that's being done in the United Kingdom, my call to something greater was very obvious. But that comes back to what I was sharing before, is maybe it's not as going to be as obvious as that, but when you start to place that love that has no place to go, you may find something that's greater, a greater calling. So this idea of post-traumatic growth is, here's how I would answer the part if you haven't had significant loss I'm just thinking out loud here, is like,
Sure.
don't settle. If you're doing something, if your career, your life, some aspect of your role in life, your identity doesn't feel aligned with true purpose and meaning, don't settle. Don't wait for something to crack your heart open. Seek that purpose, because as unfortunate and catastrophic as all this is, living in much greater purpose now is so meaningful, that I just want it for everyone else. And while in some ways it's you can't find it if you're suffering. If you've had loss, your heart's cracked open in such a way that it's ready. But I also believe you can, with enough presence, grace, and connecting with others, find a call to something greater that has you juiced, that has you filled with love. Because it is my belief, after all, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
It's not to work 9 to 5 or what have you. We're here to find our purpose, and that purpose inevitably is going to involve serving others.
Yes. Ooh. Thank you so much for that.
Mm-hmm.
One part of, I want to talk about your framework a little bit. Is that okay? You want to view
that's great.
a little bit? And oh, my heart is so full this morning. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. One part of the enduring framework is never system mastery. Why isn't positive thinking or changing our mindset always enough? And what might the body still be holding on to long after the mind believes it's moved forward?
Okay. I love the 2-part question. So the first part is the mastery. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah,
So one
ask it
part of
again.
the enduring framework is never system mastery. But the first part of the question is, why isn't positive thinking or changing our mindset always enough? And what might the body still be holding on to long after the mind believes it's moved forward?
Yeah.
Because you know how we live in a world where, and I tell people all the time, our mind is a very powerful thing, right?
Yes.
But your mind is very powerful and it could be your worst enemy. But I'm a firm believer our heart is where all the decisions are made. Our bodies is where all the pain and the joy and everything else is stored in there. So
yes. Yeah, so great question. And I think it helps me also answer your question way back when about identity.
Yeah.
So before, in my previous identity, I was a positive person, and I believed that positivity carried the day. So if I was in an interaction with another human being, it was almost like I didn't have to know what they were going through. As long as I brought positivity and energy, I could transform that moment and experience. And I think by and large, that served me and many others. But it's also fascinating. Some would say to me over the years, I could think of 2 or 3 who have become very close with me. Like when I first met you, like you were so positive. It's like I almost couldn't believe it. I couldn't relate because it seemed so.
They probably thought it was toxic. You know how they say positive toxicity.
Right. And I think generally you got to be a positive person. But what I've swapped out instead of positivity is curiosity and connection. Instead of arriving and I'm going to come from a positive place, I'm going to come from a place of curiosity and real interest in the other, to understand what they're going through and what may be where the opportunities exist to connect in love. And as it relates to the mind, you know, we can change our state, our physiology in a moment. We could do jumping jacks, we can do push-ups, we can do any number of things. But I agree with you. If we can begin to start from our heart, so start with our intuition, trusting our gut, trusting our heart, and then using our mind to translate that feeling into vocabulary that we can use to express the feeling. I think that is an important piece. And then what I would also share as it relates to the how is, if you've lost in the way that I've lost, the things that I've just shared with you in the last 3 minutes, I could just hear myself, because this is how I was at the start. But that doesn't matter. Like I lost my son. No positive experience that I have moving forward will ever be what it's supposed to be, because he's not in it. And that's a tough place to be. That's suffering. And our mind can turn ourselves into the prosecutor about the truth of that. So what I learned through experience was, it wasn't practice or even a framework that got me through. It was understanding what were the experiences that shifted my physiology, even when I was certain I couldn't. So in the depths of suffering, sometimes, or in my case, and I'm really studying this now, humor, laughter can be that pattern interrupt. That despite I am suffering, I am not happy, I am down, the right joke, the right moment, the right thing will cause you to laugh. We'll shift that. And it creates a pinhole of possibility that then having a tool set or framework can create the expansion, of that possibility. I've also found the same to be true with live music. So sometimes it's not a thinking into, most times a thinking into action isn't going to get you there. It's a feeling, and you can play with things like music soothes your soul, comedy, and in the work we're doing on the nonprofit side, we've been blessed to connect with comedians, and we're doing a big fundraising event in November at the Comedy Store in La Jolla. But the point being is, there's actually this concept of traumedy out there. Comedians who have traumatic experience that are sharing their lived experience, but in a way that is bringing comedy, brevity, lightness, joy, so that we can flip that physiology when the mind says, no, I want to stay in suffering. So I don't know if that answers your question,
Oh my
but
goodness,
hopefully
it answers my
it's
question.
valuable.
It did. You answered the question extremely well. And I'll just add on to that, right? It's the embodiment. It's the feeling. We need to embody it. Is it hard? Absolutely. The longest journey a human being can ever take is from the mind to the heart. The mind is a powerful thing, but you've talked about the heart over and over again. And I hope people can understand how important it is to sit with yourself. You talked about the trauma, to be able to sit with yourself and to really be with yourself. I just wrote something yesterday. I did a post on LinkedIn after my trip, and I was explaining how this past year I've lived in solitude. I was not lonely. I was alone most of the time, and I preferred to be alone because I had to sit with myself, right? Even with some traumatic experiences, things that I've lived through, I'm like, okay, girl, you can't just move your way through this. You have to sit with it and embody it. And a feeling is so powerful. That's why love is so powerful. That's why grace is so powerful, because you embody the feeling. And I think feeling brings a lot of healing, We heal when we feel.
Yes.
Yeah.
So well said. And embodiment, I used to be confused with. I thought it was taking from the outside and embodying it. And you've said it so clearly and so effectively. I'm really helped by what you've shared. And it really is those feelings, those gut feelings is sitting with them, experiencing them. And if you're finding that it takes your breath away or it's too much, breathe into it, because those feelings are what's going to create the growth and transformation. It's the moving or shifting away from experiencing them that leads to, greater challenges and greater difficulties. I resonate with so much with what you shared there about embodiment and solitude versus loneliness. It's those moments of stillness, solitude, silence, that space in between where those feelings come up, and you've got to allow them to come up and experience them. And the most simplest explanation is like letting yourself cry.
That's
it.
it.
Really, really intense, moaning, screaming out, whatever's necessary. But the analogy I would give is, when we were children, when we didn't get our way or whatever it was that led to that crying. Remember that crying that was like, and we would cry.
Calm down. You're like,
but as soon as it all gets out, what happens? There's a release. There's a lightness. There's a space that's created, right? So, when you said, listen to your heart, love, grace, but also accept and welcome pain. When that feeling comes, welcome it. It's hard. It's unbearable at times. But remember, it's that experience of that deep, profound pain that creates the possibility for that equal and opposite experience of joy, love, and connection. So sometimes I'll even just remind myself I'll remind myself that this level of love, connection, and joy is coming. This is happening to create the capacity for this. So I wouldn't want to short circuit this, because if I do, then I'm here. And now my capacity for love and joy is here. We want to keep that broad range. I think that's part of the closure lie again, is like, no one's like, what's wrong with you, when you're laughing uncontrollably and can't stop.
Fact,
they're like so happy. So why over here? They're like, oh, you should be over it now. Or what can I do? How can you're crying? You're crying in public. People are looking. I mean, if I'm laughing in public and people are looking, they're feeling, they're alive. If I'm crying in public and people are looking, we ought to be feeling and be reminding ourselves we're alive.
Yeah. And I love that you say that, because think about this analogy. You were just talking about pain and how love comes from pain. Even a woman, you carry a child for 9 months, the delivery, the pain is so excruciating, but you bring life into this world. When the baby is born, what do? They smack the baby on the behind. That's where our breath comes in, right? Baby starts to cry. And we forget all of these things as we're moving through life. And I tell people all the time, you're feeling anxious, breathe. You're feeling sad, breathe. Because it connects you back to yourself. It gives you that embodiment. As you said, most people think embodiment comes from the outside. It's within. Gotta embody it. Right. Real quick, you were talking about capacity and your capacity of love. Let me tell you something, my brother. I feel the capacity of your love. I feel it. I do. I feel it through the screen. And God bless you. Honestly.
Thank you.
Honestly.
Yeah. Well, thank you for creating this space for me to pour the love into, because I wake up every day with a lot of it. And why suffer?
Yeah.
And so for those of you who feel like, well, I don't know, I don't have people in my life, I don't have these connections, these possibilities. Again, it's just sharing one thing vulnerably with one person that's going to unlock this for you. And then you start to stack those experiences and you're like, oh, wow, okay, I feel lighter. I feel freer. I've given this love. So it's just a courageous act to share something vulnerably with someone you trust.
Yeah. You're healing a lot of people today. You may never know their names. And it could only be one person that says you just change one person's life. And you being here today, man, you're healing a lot of people. You are healing a lot of people. So I'm going to end with, for the person listening who believes my life will never be what it was before, what would you want them to understand about rebuilding a life that can hold? We talked about it, the duality, light and dark, both grief, joy, pain, and purpose, resemblance, and possibility. You've already touched on that. And I guess essentially, I'm just going to give you the floor. Somebody's listening right now. They're in pain. They're going through grief. They don't know what to start. They're hearing all these things. You look on social media, people's like, do this and do this and do that. It's conversations like this that move the needle. Conversations like this that make other people say, as you mentioned, I am not alone. What do you have to say to anybody listening today? And I'll give you the floor. You don't even have to answer the question that I asked.
Well, sure. And I'd like to, in part, answer the question, because I think it starts with acceptance. You know, there are two or three things that I felt early on. One was a tremendous amount of guilt. That despite our best efforts, we weren't able to save our son's life. And second was that I failed as a parent, because our only responsibility, our number one responsibility, is to protect them. You know, and I wasn't able to protect my son. And the third is that, you know, life will never be the same without Anthony here. My third BS story was that, you know, my best days are behind me. And, you know, looking at the three of them, guilt is tricky, you know, but the antidote for me is all the decisions we made were made out of love. And that's something that I could live with. I've come to realize that, yeah, I mean, protecting our children is our number one responsibility. And sometimes in life, things are out of our control. Martin Short shared when he lost his daughter in this way that mental health is mental health is a disease, and much like cancer, sometimes it's terminal.
Yeah.
So just remembering acceptance that I'm not God. Things are out of my control. And then this idea that my best days are behind me also starts with acceptance. Yes, life will never be the same. That there's no going back. That's when you get into suffering, is to somehow think or trick yourself into like you can go back. So you have to accept that the life you hoped for, dreamed for, in many ways expected, doesn't exist. It ended that day of the loss. Like I said, I didn't survive it. That said, what also exists is that your destiny is still being written. Your destiny is still being written. So I may not have the life I hoped, dreamed for, expected, but my destiny is still being written. And then the last thing I would say is just kind of a spiritual faith side of things, is that if you've lost a loved one, this is just my experience and my belief is, I know, it's my belief at least, that the moment that I pass, the moment I meet Anthony, the moment I reunite with Anthony, it's going to feel like not even a moment has passed. So, you know, God willing, I've got years or decades. And as much as I'm looking forward to reuniting him, there's work to be done here. But it is my belief that in that moment, it's not going to feel like a moment has passed. So I want to be celebrating with him. I want to be celebrating with what we impacted while I was here. And while it may be understandable that I could suffer and live out the string, I don't want there to be any levels of disappointment or, oh, Dad, why? We're doing it together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's available to you too with a loved one. It's hard, and yet it's easy because there's nothing to do. There's only to be. Again, just going full circle. If you open your heart, there's nothing to do. It's just open. And then your eyes, because you got to be able to see the people you don't know, like you, Isabel, and whoever else I might meet today, and the people that have run towards us that I don't know. Your heart could be open, but if your head's not up and your eyes aren't open, you won't see them. But if your heart is open and your eyes are open, that life of destiny will be shown to you. There's nothing to figure out or do. But the hard part is just the being, the sitting, open heart, open eyes, and trusting that intuition that what's coming in is your destiny, is your purpose.
Thank you. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. I truly cannot thank you enough. And I know why we had to reschedule. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know why. This has been healing, even for me.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I've learned a lot from you today, and I just honor you and your wife. I honor Anthony and everybody out there who's lost a loved one. I mean, I posted on Threads a few months ago that my father passed a few years ago, and I came to the realization that I never got to grieve my father. He passed away and I got into action. What do I need to do? Protection, do this and do that and do that. And then it hit me a few months ago. I said, wow, because I was feeling some pain and I couldn't understand where it was coming from. And I said, I never got to grieve my dad. So I thank you. Thank you for continuing to share your story with people. You're helping a lot of us. You're helping people out there. And gosh, Anthony's name, it's not in vain. Yeah. I mean, look, who would have ever thought you and I would have a conversation? Who?
Right?
It's because of him.
It's because of him.
Because of his life. You see what his life is doing? Yeah.
I do. Well, and I want to thank you for holding this space, your care, emotion, tremendous interviewer. And I do believe this will help people. And, selfishly, these kind of interactions always help me. And I learned a few things today, and I'm really grateful for it.
It's you being a human. This is what we're supposed to do as humans. Our emotions, express our emotion, our feelings, because that's the center of who we are. Right. Yes. So don't ever think you're being selfish. I'm telling you, every time you and your wife speak about Anthony, you're helping somebody else. So don't you ever think that you're being selfish, ever. And I want to close out by saying healing is not forgetting what happened. It is learning how to live honestly, fully, and meaningfully while carrying what happened in a new way. Pain may remain part of the story, but it doesn't have to become the ending. Your story continues. Your wife's story continues. As we can see, Anthony's stories continue, because I never knew nothing about him. And now I know about him and the wonderful life that, he had, and the joy that he brought his parents and the family. And he lives on.
He does. He sure does.
Thank you.
What a powerful definition of healing. I think that's a great place to end. Wow.
You're welcome. And thank you. And I will end it with saying, Neil, where can people find you, by the way? I know I have all your links. I'll put them when we do the podcast, but I like them to hear it from the horse's mouth.
Well, thank you. And thank you for providing the links too. So there are two places. Number one is endurantmovement.org. Endurantmovement.org is the nonprofit my wife and I founded so that no teen, no youth, including the neurodivergent, ever has to feel alone. That's the most meaningful place you can find the work we're doing. And then if you're an adult who has experienced significant loss or pain and want to reclaim your identity and a new life moving forward, endurantway.com is where I'm doing this post-traumatic growth work. So you can go to endurantway.com, join our community. And, community is the root of healing and growth and transformation, is that stepping out of that terminal uniqueness and finding others shared experience, and we're here to lift you through this journey as others have done for me and us and continue to.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. Do you mind sharing your wife's name so we can honor her too?
Yes. So her name is Samara.
Samara. Well, Samara, we honor you. Our hearts are with you. And your baby, well, he may not be here. He's changing the world. So we salute you too. And we salute Neil. But know that he had a heart so big, the world couldn't take it. He's still
That's right.
changing the world. Well, he's not even here.
That's
So
right.
I honor all three of you. Thank you so much for being a part of my podcast. And this is the healing space. Thank you. This is what we're here to do. And I hope everybody who is listening, please share with your friends. And I pray that this moved something in your heart. I hope it helped you get out of bed. I hope it helped you think that, no, I'm still going to be here today. I won't take my life, right? Because there are people who love you. There are people around you who love you. And the world needs you. The world needs you. Again, thank you so much for listening to the Loud Whisper podcast. I am your host, Isabel Drawn, and this is The Healing Space. Until next time, take good care. And bye-bye. You want to say bye? Say bye, Neil.
Bye. Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you.